Good morning. It is 9 o'clock a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's the 6th day of February, 2025, and this is episode 1032 of Bitcoin. And why the hell are we giving $68 million to the World Economic Forum through the U.S. aid program? Yeah, we're going to get into a little bit of that, but only to introduce a particular website that I think everybody should not only be looking at, but leveraging, much like we leveraged WikiLeaks to find the truth through citizen journalism, citizen journalism. Yeah, there we go. Continuing on that same vein, the FDIC seems to be releasing some articles about ChokePoint 2.0, and they're doing it all on their own. And it looks as if they might actually be telling us the truth. That should be interesting to find out. Remember when old Leatherface, Christine Lagarde, the felon from France that runs the IMF? Or no, the European Central Bank. She used to run the IMF. She was running the IMF when she got convicted. Although she didn't actually go to jail. They basically said, no, we're just going to put the conviction on the record and you go on to the UN where they're going to throw you a party because you just became the president of the European Central Bank. Yeah, a Leatherface. Remember how she was saying that the Czech Republic would never, ever, ever put Bitcoin on the balance sheet because she talked to that governor? Yeah, we got some news on that one. Bitcoin payments aren't the future because they're already here. That's going to be a breakdown from Bitcoin Magazine. Trust me, it's going to be worth it. And then we're going to talk about the strategy. The strategy B. The worst rebranding ever. And it's not going to matter because Mike is sitting on a shit ton of cash. And then what else we got? Oh, we got Arthur Hayes. His grinning face is going to be looking at you square in the face today with describing the description of a potent political weapon. The SEC is making some changes on their own front. And then, well, what do we got over here? BlackRock has a new product up, and one of the United States states is on deck for yet another strategic Bitcoin reserve. But first, you've been hearing all about it in the news. USAID, USAID, it's everywhere. Oh my God, shit's breaking loose. It's gonna be a disaster. Oh, but what I want to do is read you this headline because I'm not pretty much, well, I'll go through and cherry pick some stuff from this article, but it is an MSNBC article. So I can guarantee you, if I read the whole thing, it would end up saying how USAID is actually good. And it's just a whole bunch of those meanie Republicans out there trying to destroy the lives of poor people. Well, then why the hell are we giving $68 million through USAID, which is taxpayer money, United States taxpayer money, to the World Economic Forum? It seems that a citizen journalist on Twitter called Kanokoa the Great has raised some concerns about it. And there's a screenshot of this tweet. I don't know what the hell X is calling their tweets now. It's a tweet, but it's on Twitter or now X or whatever it is. And here it is. Why did USAID give $68 million to the World Economic Forum? And that tweet has a screenshot. Actually, it's got two screenshots. And it looks to be a screenshot of a thing that I've seen a lot of lately. And in fact, if we go on down, there's another person that is called the Kifness that says that USAID gave $400 million to Anova, which is a South African non-governmental organization with a broken website and a deactivated Twitter account. And lo and behold, there's a screenshot on here that looks very similar to screenshots that I'm seeing all over the place. And you may be asking yourself, where the hell are these screenshots coming from? If you're not asking yourself that, that's fine. It probably means that you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you do, then you realize that if you're on Nostr or you're on Twitter, you're seeing this thing all over the place. It is a website that is basically run by a person on Twitter named Data Republican. It's at Data Republican. Yeah, data, like hard data. Data Republican, all one word, on Twitter. Don't know if it's a he or she. Avatar looks female. I don't care. It doesn't matter because this person, Data Republican, has a website. And that website is named, you guessed it, datarepublican.com. Datarepublican.com is a website that has graphing functionality on, as far as I can tell, either all or the great guts and feathers of all this U.S. taxpayer dollars, where it's flowing from, who it's flowing through, and ultimately where it ends up. Now, it's datarepublican.com, and you can go over here to like federal grant search, which is on the left-hand side, and you can type in a keyword, or if you know the organization's name, you will be able to find, or the organization's name, but more importantly, if you know the organization's like it's an NGO, like ANOVA, right? Then they've probably got what's called an EIN number, or employment or employer identification number, I think is what it stands for. It's like a social security number for businesses or organizations or anybody that's got a bank account that is an actual business that's not a citizen of some country or the United States or something like that. It functions the same way. An EIN number is essentially a business's social security number. So you can track what these businesses are. Now, when Data Republican first came up on my radar, it was because she had a graph, and literally it's a graph. Like if you do graph theory, or if you look at graphs of social networks, and I'm sure that you've seen them. It's pretty common nowadays to actually talk about the social graph or the network graph or whatever. And it basically just shows you all the nodes on the network. And in this case, each node would be some kind of organization with an EIN number, and it's got arrows that come from and to all these different organizations. And it can look like a big mess, but Data Republican put up this one graph that showed this one organization feeding like 4 other organizations with U.S. taxpayer money. And then those organizations were feeding a whole shit ton of more different organizations. So like if you go from left to right, it ends up being like a giant circle. It's really small radius on the left-hand side. And then as more organizations are involved, it gets really inflated. And then it comes over to the right-hand side and it starts getting smaller, because now all this flow of all this taxpayer money is going into these different organizations, but fewer and fewer as we get over to the right-hand side of the page until in this one particular instance, it's not all of them. It's just this one particular instance, except it was like 100, like something like 500 million or like a couple of billion. It may have been even more than that. It was an exorbitant amount of cash. And it all flowed back into a single entity, which happened to be Bill Crystal. And you've seen him he's not the comedian. It's not Billy Crystal. It's William Crystal. He's been on probably Meet the Press on PBS. He's like some like Democratic left-hand wing, pundit guy, right? Well, he's got this organization called like the Center for the Study of War. And somehow or another, all this money from this one organization flowed through all these other organizations, and then flowed back to Bill Crystal's nonprofit, or his non-governmental organization, otherwise known as an NGO. You're going to see probably a avalanche of corruption just become so evident. And it's really, really pissing off the left. And in fact, what it should do is it should be pissing off the right as well, but it doesn't seem like they're really freaking out as much, because I guarantee you there's corruption on both sides of this aisle. It's not just the left, ladies and gentlemen. You got people like Mitch McConnell, which is one of the most corrupt sons of bitches on the face of the planet. He's probably not going to be around very much longer. Last I saw of him, I think he was drooling. But I want to make sure that you are all aware that you can go examine all this data at datarepublican.com. You can look at Charity Graph, and that's actually the one that I recommend everybody looking at first. It's very, like, if you go to the left-hand side of the page, right under the symbol for Data Republican, there's a button for Charity Graph, and then there's Officer Search, and then there's Federal Grant Search, and then there's Charity Funding, and then there's even a voter turnout analysis. But this actually shows you a huge, immense graph so that you can see what I'm talking about. So it would end up being datarepublican.com/expose, EXPOSE. And you can start there and start looking at the numbers and how much taxpayer money is going to all these different organizations. I highly recommend that we pull the old citizen journalist WikiLeaks move and start actually examining this data. If we can examine this data, if we have hundreds of people looking at this, like hundreds of pairs of eyeballs just on a terror in trying to find corruption, the amount of work that's going to be done is probably it could very possibly get us out of the shit. It really could, guys. This could finally break the levee, let all the damn waters out, wipe out the corruption in the town and the valley below. But it's not going to happen if it's just the person that's put this website together actually going through the data, actually making the connections, actually looking at the people behind all these things. Like, I would have never known in a million years that William Crystal had an NGO named the Center for the Examination of War, that somehow or another was getting billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer money. And he already gets paid a lot of money to be a pundit on CNN, NPR, PBS, you name it, man. He's everywhere. So I just wanted to make sure that I put that right in front of your face at the very beginning of the show. Now, do you want to buy some wine? I want some wine. I gotta have some wine. Well, Peony Lane Vineyards. I worked a deal out with Ben Justman. He's the owner-operator of Peony Lane, Peony Lane. You can go find his wines at peonylanewine.com because Ben Justman agreed to be in the Circle P. Circle P is definitely open for business. Circle P is where I bring plebs like you who have goods and services for sale in Bitcoin to other plebs just like you. And in this particular case, you might have already seen or know of Ben Justman. So I lined it out for him yesterday. I said, hey, look, man, there's no contracts. There's no set in stone thing. If you make a sale and the person that bought your wine told you that they're buying your wine because they heard it here on the Circle P from the Bitcoin and podcast, then he's going to give me some sats that he thinks is what it's worth for this particular advertisement, for me bringing his wine to you. Now, you will say, well, Mr. Bennett, have you even tasted his wine? No, I have not. And that's the beauty of just wanting to do and help the plebs out there get their goods and services in front of other people that may not have heard about it. Now, from what I understand from many people that have tasted this man's wine, this is very good wine. But, like I said, you're not in the Circle P if you don't take Bitcoin either main chain or Lightning or some other way. You're not in the Circle P if you don't sell your goods and services for Bitcoin. And he does, because you can go to peonylanewine.com/Bitcoin and boom, you're right there where he expects to get paid in Bitcoin. I do believe is it powered by BTC Pay Server? Let me scroll down here to the bottom. It doesn't say. Let me look at this. Hold on for a second. I want to make sure because it's either Zaprite or it's BTC Pay Server. Powered by Zaprite. So this website, this part of his website will allow you to buy all manner of wines. I think most of the wines that he produces are reds, like Cabernets and whatnot, Malbec, Cabernet Franc, that kind of thing. And he gets good money for his wine. And like I said, I haven't tasted myself, but other people have said that his wine is fantastic. So if you're looking to buy wine and you want to buy it in Bitcoin and you want to help support Bitcoin plebs, then go to peonylanewine.com/Bitcoin. Buy yourself some wine. And he's got a little place where he's got a note down here on his order, on the order information. You put in your name, your email, shipping address, because, you know, he's got to send you the wine. But then there's a place at the very bottom that says note. Say, I heard about this on Bitcoin and Circle P. And that way, Ben will know that I made a sale for him. And that way, he will get me back on the other side. And like I told Ben, this is a digital handshake agreement between me and him. If I don't make a sale, I don't get sats. If I make a sale and he finds out that you bought it from him because you heard it here on the Circle P, he gets to make the determination, not me. There's no agreement as to how much he pays me every time I make a sale. He gets to figure out what he thinks it's worth. This is the value for value advertising model. Highly experimental, and sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes it does. And I just love bringing you plebs just like you to plebs just like you. Now, on to the news, where the FDIC has released a treasure trove of Operation ChokePoint 2.0 documents. This is out of Decrypt. Andrei Bagansky is writing it. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation unexpectedly, ladies and gentlemen, released a trove of documents on Wednesday detailing how the agency regulated banks' approach to cryptocurrency. Travis Hill, the FDIC's acting chairman, said that the agency is taking steps to enhance transparency as lawmakers move to investigate the plot dubbed Operation ChokePoint 2.0. Quote, the documents that we are releasing today show that requests from these banks were almost universally met with resistance. These and other actions sent the message to banks that it would be extraordinarily difficult, if not impossible, to move forward, he said in a press release. In December, the FDIC published 24 letters detailing the agency's push to delay or prevent American banks from engaging in crypto-related activities. But this 790-page tranche of documents appears to contain correspondence covering the bank's ability to serve crypto firms as well. In one letter, the FDIC appointee acknowledged that a bank's board of directors had chosen to close all of an entity's deposit accounts. While the entity wasn't explicitly referred to as a crypto firm, the letter also sought additional information on the bank's internal authorization, quote, to engage with a maximum of up to 3 additional crypto companies. The letter also said that banking organizations are neither prohibited nor discouraged from providing banking services to customers of any class or type, but industry advocates have claimed the correspondence was further proof of the FDIC's debanking plot. The documents were unveiled shortly before Senate lawmakers began a scheduled hearing on debanking. So far, it's been giving the public a first look at whether the FDIC unlawfully clamped down on the crypto industry. One snippet, highlighted by Coinbase Chief Legal Officer Paul Grewal, showed how a bank was deterred from offering an account to a stablecoin issuer looking to park reserves at the institution. The bank was told that it, quote, should not proceed with any crypto asset activity until the FDIC and another entity, the name is redacted in the document, found the practice was safe and sound. In one case, Grewal said that the FDIC did not raise concerns about risks to the financial system, but he did think it deterred a bank from offering a way for customers to purchase Bitcoin. In an excerpt, the FDIC stated that reputation risk, or the prospect of Bitcoin's price falling, was at issue. Though the conversation among lawmakers has focused intensely on the FDIC, which insures banking deposits and supervises financial institutions, the Federal Reserve recently weighed in. A week ago, Fed Chair Powell stated that, quote, banks are perfectly able to serve crypto customers as long as they understand and can manage the risks. Some letters included in Wednesday's document dump accused banks of false advertising, claiming that they did not include clear and prominent disclaimers that digital assets are not covered by FDIC insurance in their advertising. On Wednesday, Hill signaled that more documents may be in the pipeline as the agency moves to reverse practices under the previous administration. Quote, "While this review remains underway, we are releasing a large batch of documents today. Looking forward, we are actively reevaluating our supervisory approach to crypto-related activities." So it sounds to me that the FDIC is under new management, and it is completely reversing course. However, Silvergate. Do you remember Silvergate? It was the first bank taken into FDIC receivership in, 2022? Or was it 2023? I can't remember. 3 banks collapsed. Silicon Valley Bank, Silvergate, and something else. Can't remember what the other one is. But Silvergate was a special case. Because the tenets of going under FDIC receivership is that you can't pay your creditors back, your customers. They come to the door, they say, "Hey, I want my money out." And you say, "Well, I'm sorry, we don't have any money, can't give it to you, bye." Well, then you go into FDIC receivership because you're insolvent. Not the case with Silvergate. Silvergate, in fact, was able to, had the money to make every single one of their customers whole and then still have a little bit left over for a bit of operations until they got new customers making deposits. But no. They were taken under FDIC receivership, and they were immediately gutted and sold. And I can't remember who bought it. But essentially, they didn't buy the bank. They bought the customer list and the customer deposits. But that bank, there was no problem with Silvergate. And yet, it was the first bank out of those 3. And I think it became 4 in because that happened on I want to say that happened Saturday. It was either a Saturday or a Sunday that all that shit happened. And then sometime early in the next week, a 4th bank was added to that list. And it was like one of the largest banking collapses in the United States history, and nobody talks about it. Well, I'm not sure if the FDIC is going to be able to get out of all the hot water that they boiled for themselves on Silvergate. I'm hoping that we're going to get some news out of this Silvergate bullshit, but we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Leatherface, Christine Lagarde may have been correct. That's right, she may have been correct. I called bullshit, but she may be calling bullshit up on me because she said that after talking to the governor of the Czech Republic Central Bank, or the Czech National Bank, whatever you want to call it, it's their central bank, said that there was no way that Bitcoin was ever going to be into the reserves of any European central bank or any European nation's central bank. And the Czech was no different. They weren't going to get Bitcoin because she talked to the governor. Ailes Michiel, Michael, Michl is his name. That's the governor. That's the head honcho over there at the Czech Central Bank. Well, turns out she may have said something to the Czech Central Bank governor that possibly, scared the piss out of him. Not sure, because Reuters put this out this morning. Headline is, Czech Central Bank, quote, "No time horizon for analysis to assess reserve options," end quote. It's a very short article. The Czech Central Bank has no time horizon for an analysis on widening its investments of reserves to include more asset classes, potentially including Bitcoin, Governor Ailes Michael said on Thursday. That was this morning. The bank's board last week had approved conducting the analysis to look at broadening the asset classes in its reserve portfolio after its governor flagged Bitcoin as an option under consideration. Seriously, guys, that's it. That's the article. So, we get this news last week that central bank head honcho of Czech Central Bank says we want to look at Bitcoin and reserve and expand our reserve portfolio. And then hours later, old Leatherface stands up in somewhere, some speech or some interview she's given, and says that she talked to this guy and that there's no way Bitcoin goes on the balance sheet. And here we are a week later with a 2-sentence article out of Reuters basically saying that the governor is now saying, well, we don't have a time horizon. We never said what date we would make a decision by. This could be indefinite. Do you smell a rat? Because I smell a rat. Oh, by the way, getting back to Peony Lane, if you want to get a hold of Ben Justman over on Nostr, he is primal.net/Ben Justman, Justman. And it's the same handle over on Deadbird's site if you want to go over there and talk to him. But it's BenJustman. That's Ben Justman of Peony Lane. He makes Bitcoin wine. Maybe that callback will get you to order some bottles. Make sure you tell him you heard it in the Circle P. All right. Bitcoin payments aren't the future. They're already here. And this is by Shinobi, Bitcoin Magazine. Breeze, in partnership with A1Z, has released a new report investigating the use of Bitcoin as a payments system and as a transactional currency. Bitcoin has always been painted as digital gold. That is one of the longest running narratives at this point in terms of what Bitcoin actually is. It does capture the use as a long-term investment or speculative asset and has been a very helpful aid in getting people over the first hump of basic understanding, but it is by no means a comprehensive explanation of what Bitcoin actually is. The report, which is linked to here in this article, and this article's link will be in the show notes as a URL, so you'll be able to find the report if you dive deep enough. The report dives into multiple factors of Bitcoin's use as a payment mechanism. It dissects different use cases, regulatory treatments received in different jurisdictions, services, and platforms with existing integration of Lightning payments, etc. Case studies are included looking at specific businesses and the volume of transactions or user base they have provided access to Bitcoin for. Mercari, a major Japanese marketplace similar to Amazon, accepts Bitcoin. Mullvad, VPN, Namecheap, and ProtonMail are all instances of digital businesses benefiting from Bitcoin payments. While the Bitcoin digital gold narrative is running strong, Bitcoin's use as a payment mechanism is growing quietly in the background. Storing value may be a necessary component of Bitcoin's use in commerce, but the ultimate purpose it was created for was to transact with. And you can read the report here. And again, this URL to this Bitcoin Magazine article will be in the show notes as a URL. So you just got to tap it or click it or whatever. And then the very first sentence, it says Breeze in relationship with A1Z has released a new report. New report is underlined, and that will take you right to breeze.technology/report. And that's where you can find this report. Now, the rebranding. Why MicroStrategy? Now Strategy is about to get a $12.75 billion boost to its balance sheet, according to Bernstein. And this is written by James Hunt out of theblock.co. MicroStrategy, which rebranded to Strategy yesterday, for whatever reason, is about to get a $12.75 billion boost to its balance sheet, according to analyst at research and brokerage firm Bernstein. Strategy reported, and this is really bad, y'all. Their earnings came out yesterday, and it was a shit show for Strategy, formerly known as MicroStrategy. They reported a net loss of $670 million in the fourth quarter of 2024 on Wednesday, with operational expenses rising 693% year over year to $1.1 billion. Operations. Their operational expenses rose 7 times what they paid in operations last year. They did not pay that this year. They paid 7x on a year-over-year basis. That includes just over $1 billion worth of impairment losses related to the company's Bitcoin holdings compared to 39.2 million during the same period in 2023. So there's where the Bitcoin on their balance sheet is causing problems under the old FASB rule set. Okay, so keep that in mind because that shit changes in May. Previously, digital asset values on the company's books had to be marked down when prices fell, but could not be adjusted upward if prices rose unless it was sold. However, with Strategy adopting the Financial Accounting Standards Board's new, quote, fair value accounting rules from January 2025, this will lead to a one-time cumulative adjustment of $12.75 billion to the opening balance of its retained earnings, the Bernstein analyst led by Gottman Shugani wrote in a note to clients on Thursday. And it will enable the firm to recognize unrealized gains on its Bitcoin's position for the very first time. Quote, beginning in the first quarter of fiscal year 25, the carrying value of Bitcoin will align with the market value, allowing MSTR to report any appreciation in Bitcoin's price as a gain in its net income, according to the analyst. However, uncertainty remains over the tax treatment of Strategy's Bitcoin holdings under the new FASB rules in combination with provisions of the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, meaning that it could require a special exemption from the Internal Revenue Service. Strategy stock closed down 3.3% on Wednesday and is currently up 1.4% in pre-market trading on Thursday. MicroStrategy changed its corporate brand. Now we get into the branding fiasco, which I think was dumb. I'm sorry, that's just me. I know. Yeah, Dave, he's a billionaire and you're not. I know. I'm still calling it out. It's just dumb. MicroStrategy changed its corporate brand to just Strategy ahead of its earnings release on Wednesday. Quote, the new logo includes a stylized B, it's the Bitcoin symbol, signifying the company's Bitcoin strategy and its unique position as a Bitcoin treasury company. The brand's primary color is now orange, representing energy, intelligence, and Bitcoin. The firm said in a statement, further quote, this finally symbolizes the complete shift from its software business to a Bitcoin treasury company, Shugani wrote. I told you this shit 6 months ago, if not longer. Mike is completely disinterested in furthering anything in software. He's done. He's been done. This is finally it. Other than servicing his MicroStrategy's like former customers, they're not going to release, they're not going to update their quote business strategy software suite. I guarantee you they're going to stop selling it altogether. He's done. He's out. It is now Bitcoin only. It is a 100% financial company now. And it started out, they were building software. Continuing, the company recorded a year-to-date BTC yield of 74.3%, a key performance indicator it uses to represent the percentage change in the ratio between its Bitcoin holdings and assumed diluted shares outstanding. Strategy also announced other new KPIs, an annual BTC gain and BTC dollar gain, with an annual BTC dollar gain target of $10 billion for 2025. On Monday, Strategy's latest 12-week Bitcoin buying streak came to an end. Oh my God, we're all going to die. After confirming it did not sell any shares of Class A common stock under its at-the-market equity offering program and did not purchase any Bitcoin in the week ending February 2nd. The company's total Bitcoin holdings stand at 471,107 BTC, which is worth around $46 billion. Strategy's total holdings were bought at an average price of $64,500 per coin, a total cost of around $30.4 billion, including fees and expenses, according to a company's co-founder and executive chairman, Michael Saylor. And to put that in perspective, Strategy holds more than 2.2% of Bitcoin's total 21 million coin supply. Strategy's 21-21 plan, which was introduced in the third quarter of last year, targeted a capital raise of $21 billion in equity and $21 billion in debt from 2025 through the year 2027. Over the past 3 months, the company has already utilized around $20 billion of that plan, the analyst highlighted. $16.7 billion in equity and $3 billion in convertibles and $600 million in preferred stock. Strategy aims for a long-term leverage ratio of 20 to 30%. However, its current ratio is lower than this target at around 15% due to its outstanding $6.2 billion in convertible debt, with the first maturity not due until 2028. This provides enough room to lever up. Oh, shit, they said, as the firm's Bitcoin experiment continues. Even the block's calling it an experiment. Well, I guess it is. I guess it is. We'll have to wait and see if Mike gets somehow or another thrown under the bus and then fed to the proverbial dogs. But I think that strike price is somewhere around 16,500 a coin before Michael Saylor is completely destroyed. And that's a long way to go. That is a long way to go. Meanwhile, while we wait, let's run the numbers. CNBC market report. Everything sucks. Oil is down 1/4 point to $70.87. This China thing is really, it doesn't look like it's going to be cleared up anytime very, very soon. And I haven't heard a single word I haven't heard a reply from the Trump administration about the China tariffs levied on the United States, but it's really screwing up energy. Brent North Sea is likewise down 1/5 point to $74.48 a barrel. Natural gas down 3/4 point. Gasoline, however, as you would expect, is up 1% to $2.07 a gallon. Gold is down 2/3 point to 2875.7. Yeah, gold's at an all-time high, but still it's down 2/3 point. Silver is down a full point. Platinum is down 1/3. Copper is up 0.16%. And palladium is down 2 1/4. Ag, it's basically mixed. The biggest winner today looks to be wheat at 2.14% to the upside. Biggest loser is chocolate, down damn near 5 points. Live cattle down 2.1. That's not good. Live hogs is unchanged, and feeder cattle are also down 2.1. The Dow is down 1/3. Everything else is essentially moving sideways. S&P is up 0.17, NASDAQ 0.12, and the S&P Mini is up as well, 0.06. So it's basically just chucking on down the tracks. And at $97,180 per corn kernel, we have a $1.93 trillion market cap, and that is going to only get you 34 ounces of shiny metal rocks with your one Bitcoin, of which there are 19,820,344.96 of, and average fees per block remain low. Why? Because mempools around the world are really light. 0.04 BTC taken in fees on a per block basis. How many blocks are there? Well, let me tell you, there are, let's see, 12? Yeah, 12 blocks, carrying a measly ass 17,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 4, count them 4 Satoshis per VByte. Low priority is going to get you in at 3, and hash rate is still above 800. 807.9 exahashes per second. I still am in awe that miners with like almost no fees at all and only on subsidy, because they're getting a subsidy every time they win a block reward, that is the subsidy. Only on subsidies are these guys not pulling hash rate hand over fist off the network. So your Bitcoin is secure. And from yesterday's, or actually not yesterday's, snow day yesterday, kids had to stay home. Wife wasn't feeling well. Nothing I could do, ladies and gentlemen, but my sincerest apologies for not bringing you the strategy news right when it broke. Anyway, Sovereign Syrup. Yeah, Tuesday's show, it was I got Geek Toshi with 1031 that says, This 1031 is better than Odell's 1031. Keep on rocking, brother. You got it. And then I got Gil Marin with 1,000 says, did you miss the news on the Ligma E-Nuts protocol? Great show. Did you catch that? Ligma E-Nuts. You know, Gil, I was already putting Ligma, and I think I was like at Ligma E-N into Google when it hit me. Ligamy nuts. Whatever, dude. God's Death, 537. Thank you, sir. No, thank you. And Gil, that was a good one, by the way. Wartime with 333 says, cheers. Paul Sir 9 with 250 says, thank you, sir, especially for your take on the tariff situation and the MicroStrategy trade. It's because of such condensed insights that your episodes are invaluable. Plus, I just like your style, including the occasional rant. Keep up the good work. Dude, Paul, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always nice to hear when people actually like what I do. Yegro with 121 says, constructive criticism is very useful, not just to help in explaining things better, but also it encourages the person explaining to think more and perhaps differently or perceive differently a topic, which in turn helps them understand it at an even deeper level. Yes, and writing helps with that. It really does. Actually writing stuff down, either type it on a computer or write it down on a page or whatever. You know, writing actually helps you think. Pies with 100 says, thank you, sir. No, thank you. Pies with another 100 says, value for value. I totally agree with that. Value for value, which is why I depend on you guys to help me keep this show going. And instead of asking you for money today in the form of sweet, sweet Satoshis, I need your time. A 5-star review on Apple Podcast. I know what you're saying, but David, you always send out the link to fountain.fm. You don't send it out on Apple Podcast. Yes, but Apple Podcast has been around so long that they are a major node on the podcast referral network. What do I mean by that? It means that somehow or another, Apple sets the tone with whose podcast is valuable by how many 5-star reviews the Apple Podcast website actually gets on my RSS feed address. So that's just a thing. I'm not going to pretend that I know why. I'm not going to pretend that I know how. I just know that it is. So therefore, I ask you for your time today to go over to Apple Podcast, find, I've got it in my show notes. There's a direct link to Apple Podcast in my show notes. Click the URL. It'll send you right there. Log in, whatever it is you got to do, and leave me a 5-star review and say something nice. Or you can even say, I'm giving this guy a 5-star review, but I really wish he'd include this in his show sometimes. And give me an idea for a new segment or something like that. I am listening when you guys talk. If there's something that you said that you want me to do and I just don't do it, it's because either I can't figure out a way to deliver it properly or it just doesn't fit in the show. But it doesn't mean that I'm not listening. And it doesn't mean that I won't continue to listen. But if you guys can get the word out about the show, then we can spread it around. Like, I'm getting more and more supporters on fountain.fm. And a lot of that is because of you guys. You help me market the show. I'm a one-man band over here, dude. I got like that idiot that's sitting in the corner in the bar. He's got like all this shit attached to him. He's got like cymbals up over his shoulder, and he's got like a kick drum down there, and he's got a little monkey running around trying to get people. That's me. I'm the guy that's doing that. So take pity, have some mercy, spread the show. That's the Weather Report. Welcome to part 2 of the news you can use, brought to you by Peony Lane Vineyards. Over there at peonylanewine.com/Bitcoin, you can get all the wine you want from my good friend, Ben Justman. And if you don't buy today, just remember where you heard it. One of these days you'll go, what was that wine thing that David was talking about? Oh, yeah, that Peony Lane wine. Even if it's 4 months from now, and you remember that you heard about it here in the Circle P, make sure Ben knows. Because even 4 months from now, he'll go, oh, shit, I got, even though you didn't hear it but 4 months ago, at least it's still a sale, and he will cut me some Satoshis for that sale. Now, Arthur Hayes, the grinning man, is apparently saying that Bitcoin Reserve could end up being a potent political weapon. Braden Lindria, Cointelegraph. Dun, 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 dun. A Bitcoin strategic reserve in the U.S. could be a net negative for the industry, as it could be used as a political weapon, and even reversed if Democrats win the election in 2028 and decide to sell the stockpile, according to an industry executive. That last one, that's the one that always does worry me. Because all this, unless the Bitcoin strategic reserve, first of all, we got to see it happen. I haven't seen it happen. I hear a lot of talk. I hear people say, yeah. I've seen exactly jack squat done on the strategic Bitcoin reserve. But let's say it happens. Unless that is instantiated into law by Congress, then yeah, the next president can definitely do something about it. And the next administration could try to get rid of the Bitcoin law if it was actually instantiated as law, but it is way more difficult to do than just reversing a presidential executive order. If I remember, I have more to say on that. Quote, broadly speaking, many misguided crypto folk wish that the U.S. government would print dollars and purchase Bitcoin as part of a national stockpile. I believe these folks are asking for the wrong things, said Maelstrom Fund Chief Investment Officer Arthur Hayes. Hayes argued that the potential Bitcoin stockpile would simply be another financial asset that could be bought and sold. Quote, there would be 1 million Bitcoin just sitting there ready to be sold. It just takes a signature on a piece of paper, said Hayes. It turns a Bitcoin reserve or, quote, national stockpile of shitcoins held by the U.S. government into a potent political weapon. Hayes, who was one of the founders of BitMEX Crypto Exchange, acknowledged that the Bitcoin reserve would initially make Bitcoin's price go nuts, but said whether the U.S. buys or sells more of it would primarily be for political and not financial gains. If U.S. President Donald Trump fails to slow inflation, stop wars, and fix the food supply by 2026, excuse me, the Democrats could build political momentum, win the House majority, and potentially even punish crypto investors who supported Orange Man in the 2024 election, Hayes said. Well, it could be. Others have been more optimistic about the prospect of a national Bitcoin stockpile, and I won't get into that because this is just like the other side. These are other people talking about. I wanted to talk about what Arthur Hayes was saying because he brings up a damn good point. Everything that we've seen, and understand, I'm putting on my weatherman tinfoil hat. I'm just telling you that it's raining. I'm not telling you that it's good. I'm not telling you that it's bad. I'm just saying I looked outside my window and water's falling from the sky. Therefore, it's raining. Okay. Now that that's done, you know I'm neutral when I'm about what I'm about to say. Everything that we've seen done by the Trump administration is effectively done through executive order, except for the placement of people in the cabinet, like JFK, and I hope he gets confirmed because that would be really interesting. Tulsi Gabbard, I don't know if she's been confirmed or not, but Bondi's been confirmed. And it looks to me like all of his people are going to get confirmed. JFK or RFK is the lowest man on the totem pole as far as chances of getting confirmed, according to Polymarket, or at least he was 2 days ago last I looked. I haven't looked today. Be that as it may, that's not executive orders. But everything else that we've seen is essentially either executive order or basically Trump saying something about Gaza. Okay, so the executive order, let's just look at that. All of those can be reversed in the next administration. If if Vance doesn't become the presidential, or not only the presidential candidate, but then wins the presidential election in 2028, then you can bet your bottom dollar that everything that Trump did will be reversed. Even though the amount of damage and when I mean damage, I just mean wrecking ball, like taking down bullshit, right? There's a lot of crap that I didn't like that's just being gutted. To have to rebuild that, I don't envy anybody that, but be that as it may, in essence, executive orders can be overturned by an executive order. And in my opinion, this is no way to run a country. It's just not. So what would need to happen? Well, to get I could see it going this way. Trump uses his executive order to just get started what needs to be started, in his opinion. Then it will be up to Congress during the next 2 years. If the following doesn't happen, then we're going to have some serious issues. The following thing that needs to happen is this. Congress needs to follow up and essentially canonize every single one of these executive orders and convert them into quote unquote, the law of the land through congressional legislative sessions. Build the bill. Like, for instance, let's look at the strategic reserve, the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Said he was going to do it with an executive order. And then, and I was talking about this on a few shows back, you got Cynthia Lummis, who's written a bill, the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act. So let's say Trump signs an executive order, says you start buying Bitcoin right now, they start doing it. Then Cynthia Lummis has got this bill introduced, it passes out through committee, goes to the floor of both the House and the Senate, is voted on, and then that bill, now passing out of Congress, goes to the president's desk. And if the president of the United States signs that bill into law, now it's not an executive order. Do you see how this works? They would have to do that with everything that they don't want taken down, either after the 2026 midterm elections, or, God forbid, we have a complete left-wing psychotic person put into that chair. There are some left-wing people that are good people, but Biden and Kamala Harris, I'm sorry, both of them were sociopaths, psychopaths, both of them. And they had both conditions. They were both psychopathic and constant lying. It was clear that he was not in control of the United States, and yet he was being passed off as the commander-in-chief, and everybody that watched this guy talk is like, there's no way. He can't find the bathroom, much less order a nuclear strike if we had to do it. He doesn't know where he is. It was a lie. That entire presidency was a lie. God forbid Kamala Harris gets in. We dodged a huge bullet on that one because that woman's got some weird shit going on. And I won't even get into that. But the more you dig, the funnier that whole thing is. So, to reiterate, the only way that Trump gets what Trump wants done is to do it in a two-phase way. Phase one, executive order the shit out of everything. Phase two, make sure that is reflected and instantiated into the law of the land through proper congressional means. And if that shit's not done, well, then Arthur Hayes is right. The next administration could very well just sell everything and we have a major crash because they don't want Bitcoin in. Honestly, that makes me kind of still question why Trump's doing any of this in the first place, because he loves the dollar. But whatever. Let's move over to the Securities and Exchange Commission, because they're scaling back their anti-crypto unit. And they're strengthening a brand spanking new task force, according to Atlas21.com. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission is restructuring its approach to cryptocurrencies, and according to the New York Times, the agency is downsizing its special enforcement unit dedicated to the crypto sector while simultaneously bolstering a new task force focused on regulation. This decision marks a shift from the previous administration. The enforcement unit, which included over 50 professionals such as lawyers and other staff, is seeing some of its key members transferred to other departments within the same agency. This move reflects the SEC's new direction under Trump's leadership, favoring a more constructive approach to the sector. Meanwhile, Republican Commissioner Hester Pierce announced that the new task force will focus on classifying different types of crypto assets and related activities to determine which fall under the category of a security. The SEC has also launched a new webpage dedicated to the task force, opening a communication channel with the industry and the public to gather input and feedback. This new direction contrasts with the approach of former Chairman Gary Gensler, who advocated for regulation through enforcement that had targeted U.S. crypto operators. President Trump has appointed Mark T. Ueda, known for his pro-digital asset stance, as interim SEC chairman, and he has already begun making strategic appointments at the agency's top levels. For the permanent chairmanship, Trump has nominated Paul Atkins, a former regulator with a long history of supporting innovation in the crypto sector. Yeah, well, you could have said the same thing about Gary Gensler. He taught a blockchain class at Harvard or wherever the hell he was at, and everybody thought he was pro-crypto because of it. Turns out, we were wrong. We were really wrong about Gary Gensler, and yet he was touted in the same way. He had a long history of supporting innovation in the crypto sector. So until this man is appointed and then picks up his pen and starts doing stuff, I don't believe nothing. Now, out of CoinDesk, BlackRock is planning to launch a Bitcoin exchange-traded product, not a fund, an ETP, not an ETF, in Europe. Let's find out more. Who's writing this one anyway? Chamomile Shumba is writing it. The world's largest asset management firm with more than $10 trillion in assets under management, BlackRock, plans on listing a Bitcoin exchange-traded product, or an ETP, in Europe, according to Bloomberg. The fund would be based in Switzerland, and BlackRock could start marketing it as soon as this month, according to the report. This would be the giant asset manager's first crypto-linked ETP outside of the United States. BlackRock's U.S.-based iShares Bitcoin ETF has been a wild success, accumulating, the $60 billion in assets since it's open, whatever. BlackRock's move would be the latest in a string of investment firms looking to dive further into providing crypto-backed securities in Europe. Europe is a mess. Europe is a mess. They don't even know what they don't like anymore. I just heard a report that France, who was going to call Bitcoin and its unrealized gains as, quote, unproductive products, and therefore tax the shit out of those capital gains, has now decided not to do that in their 2025 budget. We don't know what the hell they're doing. But one thing that I can say for sure is Larry Fink deciding to open up an exchange-traded product in Europe at this time signals to me that the only turmoil that is present in Europe is purely political, and that somehow or another is somehow firewalled from the financial side, at least as far as he's concerned to his interests, which is probably why he's picking Switzerland. Anyway, the company's entry into the European crypto ETP ecosystem could further fuel the competitive response that we've been seeing amongst various providers, which include fee waivers on several products. Some expense fees for ETPs have been as high as 2.5%. In the U.S., a similar competitive response came after the funds were launched in January of 2024. And a lot of question marks still occur around the product, including the fee structure, which would have big implications for the performance of the ETP. Quote, "Don't know the fee yet. That will be a big variable," said senior Bloomberg analyst Eric Balchunas. Quote, "U.S. ETFs blow away the rest of the world in cost and liquidity, but either way shows commitment from the world's largest asset manager who has a big presence overseas," end quote. U.S.-based Bitcoin ETFs currently have 91% of the world market, said Balchunas. 91% of the ETF, the exchange traded fund, the IBIT spot Bitcoin ETF, 91% of the world's market for Bitcoin ETFs, spot ETFs, seem to be over there at Blackrock. That is a huge, huge chunk of the market. And it looks like they are not waiting for their European competitors to launch any kind of, payment-worthy products that Europeans want to actually purchase. They're just going to do it themselves. So you got Larry Fink sinking his fingers deep, deep into the future of Europe because Bitcoin's not going away. But all these people, the WEF, especially now that we know that USA directly gave them $68 million, or whatever it was, billion, I can't remember what the hell it was. Whatever, they got a lot of money from USA. All that shit's coming out. And generally, I'm going to make the statement that what you're about to see is going to be horrifying. And not because, oh my God, he hates Trump. No. I don't hate Trump. I'm just saying what's been going on under the covers that we've never been able to see, probably for 7 decades minimum, is probably so horrific that if you are a churchgoer or you believe in God and you don't go to church, where you're some just decent human being that at least respects their fellow human, you're probably going to want to barf. And I ain't talking about just money. You know what I'm talking about. We're going to probably find out things that we wish, like we kept saying, we need to find this out. We know there's all kinds of weird shit going on with you guys. You guys are strange. We need to know all about it. We need to have all this stuff out in the open. And then it's probably all going to come out in the open and we're going to go put it back in the closet. The nightmare fuel. I don't want to see this. I didn't want to know this. That's probably what the reaction is going to be, because I think that what's going to come out is going to be so fucking horrific that any decent human being will start barfing immediately upon understanding the gravity of what's actually been occurring. And at that point, Larry Fink will have his fingers so clawed deep into Europe in the future that when all those people in Europe, because they're all connected, the West has just turned into a mire of corruption and bullshit. And it's because the citizenry of the West has just basically been lulled by bad food, terrible commercials, terrible TV programming to essentially just not see exactly what's going on right in front of our fucking faces. And that veil is going to be ripped off this year. And Larry's fingers are going to be so deep into that when the European power structure crumbles just like it's going to crumble over here, it's not going to matter to Larry. He's going to have his Bitcoin ETFs. He's going to have his ETPs. He's going to have all the rest of his products. And he's just going to hold on to Europe while the feathers of that dead chicken fall to the ground. And what is he going to have after that? All he's got to do is pluck the rest of the feathers off, and he's got a nice little winter chicken dinner. Atlas21.com, New Mexico is on deck, brothers and sisters. They have proposed a bill to invest up to 5% of public state funds into Bitcoin. New Mexico Senator Anthony Thornton has introduced Senate Bill SB 257, known as the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act. That's the name of the bill. It's not strategic shitcoin. It's not strategic crypto asset. No, it's Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act, which would allow the state to invest up to 5% of its public funds into Bitcoin. The proposed legislation aims to create an alternative fund for New Mexico, diversifying the state's investments by including Bitcoin. The bill mandates that the State Investment Council work closely with financial advisors to ensure responsible Bitcoin investments while monitoring the state's financial stability. It specifically calls for the use of cold storage solutions to safeguard the state's Bitcoin holdings. An increasing number of countries are exploring the idea of establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve, while El Salvador has already implemented this strategy since November of 2022. Others, such as Brazil and Russia, are considering similar moves. On the domestic front, Utah and Arizona are engaged in a race for Bitcoin reserves, with bills currently under review. However, not all states are seeing the same level of progress. Similar legislative proposals have faced setbacks in Wyoming as well as North Dakota. Wyoming's HB 201 bill has been stalled in committee, and North Dakota's HB 1184 failed to pass a House vote. Oh, that's a damn shame. But anyway, it's on deck. New Mexico is on deck. And for all of you, I want you to understand this. New Mexico has been a deep blue state for years, decades, in fact. Colorado and New Mexico always vote blue. It does not matter. They've been doing this for the same way forever. They are as deep blue as New York, both those states. I'm very surprised that it's New Mexico. New Mexico. Because if you go look at all the rest of the states that have actually proposed this stuff, either all are deep red or the ones that aren't deep red are mostly purple to the red side. This state, there's no purple in New Mexico, and there never has been as far back as I can really remember. Or at least as far back as I gave a shit about remembering. Always been blue. For them to come up with this is kind of extraordinary, even if it is probably a Republican senator, or not senator. He would be a state senator, Senator Anthony Thornton, even if he is just full red. The fact that he's got anybody else to sign their name to it, and I would assume he's got at least one other person, is kind of extraordinary because they are so deep blue. But again, not good news about North Dakota and Wyoming, but whatever. We'll have to see how this works. We've never been here before. It's blue sky all the way. Finally, Seed Signer version 0.8.5 en Espanol has been released. In fact, it's Seed Signer's first multilingual release. And for those of you who might be listening to me who speak a second language, you too can contribute to Seed Signer's translation on Transifex, and you can volunteer there you can go to Transifex. You create an account on transifex.com. That's Transifex.com to add your own language. So you'll go to the project, which is explore.transifex.com/seed signer. By the way, they are a hardware wallet. And if your language is not yet in the list, request to add it. And then volunteer to translate all the Seed Signer stuff into your language. And just so you know, Seed Signer offers anyone the opportunity to build a verifiably air-gapped, stateless Bitcoin signing device using inexpensive, publicly available hardware components. For all of you who don't know the difference between signing device and hardware wallet, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. A hardware wallet is simply a signing device. In fact, no wallet anywhere that holds Bitcoin on chain actually holds any Bitcoin at all. All it holds is your signature that allows you to re-vector Bitcoin that you are in control of on the main chain. Bitcoin never leaves the blockchain. So when you say you've got Bitcoin in your wallet, you do not. What you have in your wallet is the ability to sign a message that is transmitted to the Bitcoin blockchain that then tells the Bitcoin under your control, because of that signature, where it can go. You don't hold any Bitcoin in your wallet. You're just signing a message. Seed Signer has always been that way. They've always eschewed saying that they were a hardware wallet. They've always said they are a signing device. But in essence, it's the exact same thing. So if you've never looked at the Seed Signer project, please go look at it. If you are a Seed Signer user and you really wish that it was in your language, then go make that shit happen. And you can go make that shit happen over at explore.transifex.com/seed signer, all one word, /seed signer all one word. So that's the show. And just a little parting shot here. I have been putting notes out on Nostr, and essentially, well, let me read you this one. The Woody Wide Web. Kevin Beeler made a spatial map of fungal connections between trees in a 30 by 30 meter plot of forest. The most well-connected tree had 47 connections via fungal networks to other trees. And then I've got a picture of the map that was actually presented and drawn by Kevin Beeler that went into his paper that was published about this particular thing. The most amount of hops it took to get from this most well-connected tree to any of the other trees in the plot was 3 hops. 3 hops to get from point A to any point B. The low number of hops was entirely caused by the older trees having more connections to each other than any of the younger trees. This pattern of connectivity is the same in the World Wide Web. The great majority of web pages have just a few connections, and a sparse few pages have many, many connections. This pattern repeats in almost all networks, from global air travel to neuronal linkages in your brain. It's all about the well-connected hub. Well-connected hubs are prime targets for network destruction, but they are almost thematic in everything we see. Decentralization is the key. As with people, younger trees have fewer connections to mycorrhizal networks, and older trees have many. Even in the forest, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So why did I take the time to read that? What I'm doing, in case you did not know, is that I'm a huge Obsidian user, and that is a note-taking app. And I don't use it on my phone. I use it on my desktop. And it is part of something that I've been doing for a couple of years called Zettelkasten, where when I read a book, instead of just going, oh, well, that was nice, because I don't read a lot of fiction anymore. I read like books like Mycelium Running from Paul Stamets. I read a lot of science books, but essentially it's either like stuff about carbon, stuff about molecular biology, stuff about ecology, stuff about like this mycorrhizal fungi attachment, biochar, all that stuff. I read like 45 books, and I've taken notes on all of them. But those notes, unless you go back to all those books and you keep looking at those notes, they don't do anything for you. You forget that they exist, and then you forget the knowledge exists. So enter this thing called Zettelkasten, which was done a long time ago by a guy whose name I can't remember right now, and it doesn't matter. It's a system of taking notes that link one note to any other note that somehow or another has something to do with each other, some kind of standing theme. It used to be done on like index cards, and you would have like a card catalog like you'd see in an old library, but we're all digital now. So what I've been doing is I've been going back through all those books, gathering up all the notes that I've taken to those books or taken in those books, and then rewriting those notes as something that I can use, because by rewriting something, you get to really know what the hell you're talking about, because you've got to read what you underlined and then have to restate it. This is the way at least I do it. This is not a prescription for you, but this is the way that I do it. And then I have to reword it. I've got to restate the thing. And by doing that, it really locks it in my head. And then I've got a copy of the note that is in a repository. And I go, that note may very well have something to do with this other note that I remember. And then I use Obsidian search function and I go, yeah. And not only does it really have something to do with that note, but these other 3 notes. And then I can connect all those notes together. And then I can look at a graph view of all my notes and trace back their connections to each other. And that's what I've been doing. So when I write or rewrite one of these notes, I've been putting them on Nostr just because. Why not do double duty, right? And this particular Woody Wide Web note got a lot of traction, man. It's like that whole meme of that, the chick in the background going, You're not an influencer. And the frog lighting a cigarette going, oh man, this one's doing numbers and it's got like 4 likes on it. Yeah, dude, this one's doing numbers, bro. It's got like 49 likes, but still it's on Nostr. And I'm kind of, working with this, but people really seem to like some of these. Others get no traction whatsoever. But some of these notes that I'm putting out, actually people really seem to enjoy them. So I'm going to continue doing that. But when you see me do that, understand that an exact copy of that note is residing in my Obsidian locker box. And it's connected to like 3 other notes. And each one of those notes are probably connected to at least 1 or 2 other notes. And if I go back through the chain of all these notes and I rack them up all together and I look at them side by side, a story starts to unfold. And now whole articles could possibly be written. The guy that came up with the Zettelkasten method, the dude whose name I cannot remember, he wrote, I think it was 700 articles and 40 books before he died. His amount of productivity in his field, which I believe was sociology, anthropology, and psychology, and this was back like early 1900s, I believe, his level of productivity has yet to be matched by any other academic that I've seen. And it was because of this method of him actually writing this shit down that he got from a book and somehow or another making a file system for it. And that ended up being what he called Zettelkasten, which is roughly translated to slip box. He writes it on a slip of paper and he puts that slip into a box with all the other slips that he's written down. But he had this weird, mechanism of being able to catalog these notes with a ID number. And he would use that ID number to write at the bottom of other notes when he would remember, and then he'd go pull that note and say, this does have something to do with what I'm reading now. So he would take that ID number and he would write it on the bottom of the new note. And now those 2 notes were connected. And he was able to write 40 books and 700 articles before he died. So I just wanted to bring that up as to, you may have asked yourself, what the hell? Why does he keep talking about mycelium? Because I'm doing all these notes from a single book. Martin Sheldrake's, what the hell is it? Hold on. Oh, good Lord. There's a book that I've read called Entangled Life from a guy named Martin Sheldrake. And all these notes are coming from this one book. When I finish doing the notes in this one book, I'm probably going to start talking a lot more about maybe cattle, pastured cattle, because I got a whole book of that. Now, when I start reading that, and at one point or another, I run across the farmer or the pasture guy saying, it's all because of this mycorrhizal fungi, and he says that like 6 times throughout that book, you can guarantee that I'm going to be making connections from that book through these notes over to Martin Sheldrake's book and the notes that I've taken there about mycorrhizal fungi and grass. Maybe not trees, but grass. So now I will have 2 books connected together through these various notes, which I can go back to, look at, and start just writing from. If you have not discovered the Zettelkasten method, I wish I could, hold on, I need to be able to spell it for you so that you can go find it. Zettelkasten. Let me make sure that I'm spelling it right. Okay. Z is in Zettelkastn. Like kettlecast, but Zettelkasten. You can think of it that way. Just dive down that rabbit hole. If you're somebody that reads a lot and you've found yourself questioning what it's doing for you, then you're the person that needs Zettelkasten. And that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say on this, and I'll see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.